As South Africa works to reform its energy sector, a big shift is coming. The launch of the South African Wholesale Electricity Market, or SAWEM, which is a bit of an unwieldy, way to put it, but that's the way we're going to talk about it. SAWEM planned for early 2026. This is backed by the Energy Council of South Africa and driven by the National Transmission Company. The new platform is aiming to open up competition, improve transparency, and strengthen South Africa's energy future. What does this really mean for the market, for Eskom, and for everyday South Africans? Let's speak now to James McKay, the CEO of Energy Council of SA. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, James, this evening. Let's start at the beginning. Why is launching a wholesale electricity market so important for South Africa right now?
Very good evening to you and the listeners. We'll definitely work on a more catchy name than SAWEM, but I think as all the energy practitioners, we get very techy.
Right.
So I think if we try and make it sort of more understandable, we think of the energy transition is really about decentralized investment. So anyone can own a piece of energy. You put a solar panel on your rooftop, or in the bigger scale, you could build a wind farm or a large solar farm. And so what we've seen is a huge increase in the amount of private sector developers with both local and international finance. Mm-hmm. So what you start to see in the development is quick to build. It's cheap, but it's variable, and it's put out all over the country by all sorts of people, and is rather uncontrolled. So in order to make sure that there is a stable system, and the system operator, which at the moment is Eskom, has line of sight of who's doing what is coming online for the next day, and also very importantly for long-term investment, what price is implicit in the market, and what is how does costs change as new investment comes online. So all of that really comes together in the market structure, and so there's very technical codes that get written about how the market works. That gets embedded in a technical platform, and then there are regulatory oversights and real-time technical nomination and bidding of generation for every day. It's reconciled on an hourly basis, and then it's settled at the end of the day. So it's a real-time control and visibility of the entire energy system, and all generators, so a very important point, all generators are treated equally. So that will be Eskom in future, but we have to start small as we introduce the market. And so this is a normal step in the reform process.
And other generators referring to private sector generators, particularly in renewables?
Yeah, so Eskom is still our sort of incumbent integrated utility, and they still provide 80-90% of generation. Once the market comes in, Eskom starts to move into a position, at least on generation, that is kind of equal to other private sector generation. And so what happens is that everyone starts to bid into the market on the day ahead. So on the day before, you forecast what you're going to generate. You put those offers to the market operator, who then, based on price and demand, will call for you. So it'll be dispatched. Mm-hmm. And then the system operator technically calls you that for the day. Now, if you're unreliable, or your plant fails, or you don't forecast your wind and the sun correctly, and you just changed the way that you're operating, essentially you become out of balance, and you can negatively impact the system stability, which is bad for the system and for all users. And so you will be financially penalized in the market if you are not predictable and reliable. And so it really helps to kind of create a seamless process of efficiency, transparency. It helps to keep the costs down because it makes it very visible. And over the long term, starts to drive confidence in investment through private sector and Eskom and anyone else who wants to build generation. So, that's what it is.
We're all looking for reliable energy supply, individual consumers, businesses, of course. And there's a few phases, because there's a number of milestones that you touched on that need to be met before the launch will go ahead. And as I understand, the initial phase is set to launch in April next year.
Yeah, so initially, so if you kind of listen, and there's further layers of complication there's a capacity market, there's a green credits market, there's a reserves market. So the target now is that we need to launch the market, but in a phased approach that ensures that it is de-risked and doesn't destabilize the system. So the target for 1 April next year is really just to start off by bringing Eskom generation out into the open, and out into the open means it's visible on the market platform how they're operating, bidding on the day-ahead market, including all the public sector IPPs. So everything that was bought under the REAP or the public auctions will also on day one come through the market. So all other private sector role players can start to see how the market's operating, the oversight, the technical platform, the settlements. They can then prepare themselves, making sure that they've got the right metering, the capability, the forecasting. They've got to set up bank accounts. They have to get contracts with the market operator. Then the private sector will start being pushed into the market. And then we start to develop a wholesale market that will create that efficiency, visibility, and then ultimately it is shown to reduce costs in the total system.
And when it reduces costs, there is going to be new kinds of tariff schedules, costs that will vary as well in the entire launch phase. And how will this affect consumers who may be worried about this?
Yeah, so an important thing, and often people say, oh, it's a market and the market's there to make profit, therefore the profit is going to be an added cost layer. But the total cost in the system remains the same. What will be moved around is how the costs get allocated. So the consumers actually over time should be able to choose lower cost energy because they will have choice. Unreliable and higher cost energy will actually be forced out the system because distributors and traders won't buy that energy. So it won't have a cost impact to consumers, but it will take time for us to develop the market. And the legislation, our electricity regulation amendment bill, actually says we'll take 5 years. So we've now promulgated, we're going to launch in 2026, and we should have the full market operational really by only 2030. So we've got a long way to go.
It's a phase, definitely many phases. Right.
Yes.
Okay, so immediately from next year, will there be any kind of change for businesses or individual consumers, households?
No. So at the very first phase launch, what we really will see is the National Transmission Company, so NTCSA, Eskom, and there are other entities like NERSA, the regulator, the market operator, and the Central Purchasing Agency, which are all essentially government entities. They will form the market. So there will be no impact to municipalities, private sector, or consumers. But we will all start to see the visibility of can the market operate with transparency, with good governance, and with good oversight. Then as the readiness measures are met and confidence grows, private sector role players will be moved into the market, and then choice will start to flow. So even municipalities will be able to enter the market and buy cheaper renewables during the middle of the day and choose how they want to operate in the market. But that will take time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what everyone will be watching very closely, how their power prices are affected, the reliability, the stability of the grid system. Thanks very much to James McKay, CEO of Energy Council of SA.